时年48岁的汤姆不幸在家中遇害。尽管现场遗留了大量证据，但警方却未能锁定明确的嫌犯。直到整整10年后，一位牧师提供了关键线索。他不仅讲述了凶手坦白的犯罪经过，还提到凶手对他产生了强烈的迷恋。
She said, I don't know what's wrong, Pastor Jerry. He keeps avoiding me. You don't want to talk to me. It's not like I want to have sex with him. And that upset my wife.
那么为何现场证据充足却迟迟无法破案？这位牧师又在本案中发挥了哪些作用？接下来让我们走进这起案件。大家好，我是大熊。今天分享的案例发生在美国密苏里州卡姆登顿。该市位于密苏里州中部，坐落在风景如画的奥扎克高原地区，常住人口约为4000人，是一个以旅游为主的城市，也是卡姆登顿县的县治。故事的主人公名叫汤姆，出生于1955年，职业是一名木匠。他的一生颇为坎坷，从小生活在德克萨斯州，亲生父母极度不负责任，常常将他和弟弟妹妹丢在家里不管不顾。自懂事起，兄妹3人便经常挨饿，平时只能靠邻居们的施舍才能勉强填饱肚子。由于父母长期失责，后来汤姆和弟弟妹妹被送到了寄养家庭。但不幸的是，收养汤姆的夫妇只是为了领取政府补贴，根本不在乎他的死活。所以即便逃离了原生家庭，汤姆的生活依旧没有改善，还是会经常挨饿，也会遭到养父母的殴打和虐待。
There was a lot of abuse in these foster care homes that he suffered. And he went without a lot. Without food, he was neglected, he was beaten.
正是因为童年的不幸经历，汤姆在成年后逐渐显露出自暴自弃的心理倾向。他对家庭和事业完全不感兴趣，并且沾染了违禁品。尤其是在搬到密苏里州以后，汤姆结交了许多毒友，生活彻底失控。他不仅对多种违禁品产生了严重依赖，还开始以贩养吸，走上了犯罪的道路。然而，尽管汤姆误入歧途并非全然出于自愿，但命运并不会因为谁的苦难而发生改变。当失控的生活成为常态，悲剧便不再是意外。时年48岁的汤姆最终为他的一系列错误付出了生命代价。2004年4月28日上午6点30分，汤姆的前女友辛迪因为好几天没有见到汤姆，于是叫着朋友布莱恩来到了汤姆家查看情况。两人先是敲了敲门，见到没有回应后，又通过窗户爬进了房间。结果发现汤姆一动不动地趴在了客厅地板上，上半身遍布血迹，显然早已没有生命迹象。见到这幅场景，辛迪赶忙拉着布莱恩跑出了房间。两人在惊恐之余并没有立刻报警，而是决定先去找另一位朋友帕特里夏商量该如何处理。因为辛迪和布莱恩都是瘾君子，非常担心报警可能会惹上麻烦。好在帕特里夏冷静地给出了报警建议，最终辛迪才拨打了报警电话。
Camden County Sheriff's Department, can I help you? Yes, ma'am. There needs to be an officer, ambulance, the whole 9 yards over at 2nd Street. Okay, what's the problem? Tom Hope is his name, and a bunch of us were concerned about him. We've been trying to get a hold of him since Friday. All I know is that he's laying there, and he's not moving, is all I know.
实际上，辛迪知道的远不止这些，但由于他担心说多了可能会引起怀疑，于是很快将电话交给了布莱恩。
I'll let you talk to Brian. Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you see in the house? Did he appear injured?
Yes, ma'am. She's laying like face down, but then there looks like blood on the carpet and stuff too, right around his face area too, like, he'd been bleeding from his head.
布莱恩详实讲述了汤姆的情况，随后警方立即赶赴现场展开了调查。首先引起注意的是，汤姆死于失血过多，颈部有一处长达10几厘米的巨大伤口，四肢和躯干还有8处大小不一的刺伤。这种过度杀戮的作案方式带有强烈的情绪宣泄意味，显然凶手对汤姆怀有极大仇恨。经过进一步检查，警方很快发现了相关证据。首先，现场留有大量带血的脚印，虽然分布杂乱，难以分辨哪些来自凶手，哪些属于汤姆，但其中一组脚印延伸到了窗户方向， 而窗户上还残留着少量血迹，这表明凶手作案后通过窗户逃离了现场，窗户上的血迹也就成为了重要证据。其次，浴室的把手附近同样出现了少量血迹，厨房的桌子上还有几个使用过的注射器，但最重要的是，汤姆的口袋里有一个装有违禁品的药瓶，瓶子标签上标记有报警人辛迪的名字，这一发现引起了警方的注意。一方面，他们还不清楚辛迪与汤姆之间的具体关系，想要弄清辛迪的药瓶为何会出现在汤姆的口袋。另一方面，辛迪也是主要的报警人，本身就具有一定的作案嫌疑，所以基于这2点，警方立即前往帕特里夏的住所询问了辛迪。辛迪表示，他与汤姆曾经有过一段恋情，两人因为都有吸食违禁品的恶习，所以分手后仍然保持着密切联系。至于汤姆的口袋里为何会有他的药瓶，瓶内的违禁品又来自何处，辛迪则解释说，汤姆最近欠了很多债，已经没有钱再去购买违禁品，于是他便将自己的违禁品借给了汤姆，这在他们的圈子里非常常见，属于互相救济的行为，与本案没有任何关系。警方听信了辛迪的说法，原因主要在于帕特里夏为他提供了相关证明，也就是辛迪在报警前经历了一系列纠结，警方认为这种矛盾的情绪难以伪造，是一种发自内心的真实表现。此外，与辛迪一同报警的布莱恩也被排除了作案嫌疑。接下来，辛迪从嫌犯转变成了推动调查的关键人物，警方通过他很快锁定了下一步的调查对象，时年26岁的克拉拉和她的丈夫杰森。根据辛迪的说法，汤姆大约在1年前通过贩卖违禁品认识了克拉拉，当时克拉拉正在被丈夫杰森强制戒毒，身无分文的她只能靠个人魅力向汤姆换取违禁品。两人就这样很快建立了所谓的情人关系，甚至后来还搬到了一起同居，这让克拉拉的丈夫杰森产生了极大不满。接下来的半年里，杰森通过恐吓、威胁等手段，最终迫使汤姆主动与克拉拉断绝了来往，但是这又引发了克拉拉的不满情绪，因为克拉拉还要靠杰森提供违禁品，一旦遭到拒绝便会上门持续纠缠，杰森的生活也因此陷入了死循环。如果他继续为克拉拉提供违禁品，势必会遭到杰森的打击报复，但如果拒绝，克拉拉又会持续上门骚扰。因此在辛迪看来，杰森和克拉拉都有充分的作案动机，汤姆遇害肯定与两人存在关系。
Tom told me just a few days before he was killed that Jason had made a threat for him to stay away from Clara or he would be sorry. He was worried about Jason because Tom did say he kept trying to get Clara to stay away and she wouldn't stay away.
了解到相关情况后，警方很快询问了克拉拉和杰森，两人基本承认辛迪所说的内容，但坚决否认与本案存在关系。按照克拉拉的说法，她只是在案发前几天去过汤姆家吸食违禁品，并不了解事发情况。而杰森则表示，他在警方认定汤姆遇害的那天一直和克拉拉在一起，他们白天去了教堂参加活动，晚上又在家看了一场赛事直播，自始至终从未去过汤姆的住所。警方核实了两人的说法，但并未得出明确结论，原因主要在于他们互相作证不在场证明难以查证真伪，而且克拉拉也承认曾在案发前去过汤姆家，即使现场出现他的 DNA 也难以作为有效证据。基于上述原因，警方最终放弃了对两人的调查。
Sad, and I was very angry, and it's kind of a helpless feeling that you can't do anything about it.
坦率来说，警方的做法稍微有些欠妥。实际上，当时他们已经掌握了比较充分的证据，比如汤姆的左手指甲缝里检测出了克拉拉的 DNA， 浴室房门上的血迹也都来自克拉拉。但遗憾的是，这些证据全都被忽视了。按照警方事后的解释，他们并不是有意忽视这些证据，只是因为最关键的窗户上残留的血迹与克拉拉不符，而窗户又被认为是凶手逃离的通道，所以他们最初认为克拉拉只是在与汤姆吸食违禁品时留下了自己的 DNA 和血迹，并不是真正的凶手。 然而，正是因为这种推测，导致了本案迟迟未能侦破。直到10年后，一位长期遭受克拉拉性骚扰的牧师提供了关键线索，这才解开了隐藏多年的真相。
She began to leave a note on my desk, and they were, I don't even remember the subject matter, but it's almost like a teenage kid, it's just, and she would sign it with a heart and love CJ. I said, Claire, you come and talk to me. I said, but you can't do this.
根据杰瑞的说法，克拉拉大约从半年前开始对他产生了强烈的好感，经常会写一些类似情书的东西。起初杰瑞并未太当回事，以为只要礼貌拒绝，克拉拉便会知难而退。但没想到的是，随着时间的推移，克拉拉的行为开始变得愈发激进，不仅给杰瑞写了一本露骨的幻想小说，还开始频繁往杰瑞家打电话，导致杰瑞和妻子的关系差点出现问题。
Claire starts just kind of rambling. They didn't tell me everything that she said, but she said, I don't know what's wrong with Pastor Jerry. He keeps avoiding me. You don't want to talk to me. It's not like I want to have sex with him. And that upset my wife. And I was at home, she came in there and she said, you need to talk to her, and this is going to have to stop. So I said, Claire, if you want to play games with your family, that's fine. I said, but don't play games with mine. You need to leave us alone. And don't call me. You have crossed the line.
Yeah.
And she said, Jerry, and she's never called me by my first name. She said, Jerry, if you tell the law what you know about me, I will destroy you. I will effing destroy you. She used the word, and I just hung up.
正是因为克拉拉接二连三的越界行为，两人最终在4周前彻底决裂，而杰瑞也因为掌握了克拉拉的秘密，开始担心自身的安全。事情的起因并不复杂，大约在1年前，克拉拉出于罪疚感向杰瑞坦白自己杀害了汤姆。杰瑞出于牧师的道义，最初为他保守了秘密，但如今两人已经彻底决裂，并且克拉拉还对杰瑞发出了死亡威胁，所以出于自身的安全考虑，杰瑞这才举报了克拉拉。
I'm not trying to justify what I did, but to be honest with you, I felt like that she was under so much pressure and guilt, she would just go do it herself, but she didn't.
警方很快证实了杰瑞的说法，但要想指控克拉拉谋杀并不容易，还需要更加直接的证据。经过一番商讨，警方最终决定先以较轻的骚扰罪逮捕克拉拉，随后再通过审问技巧迫使她承认谋杀，于是便有了接下来的审讯画面。
Do you remember me, Claire?
正在说话的这位警探名叫大卫，他是负责汤姆案的首席警探，早在10年前就曾与克拉拉打过交道。大卫之所以询问克拉拉是否认识自己，其实是一种审问策略，因为他们准备了2套审问方案，一是采取高压手段直接出示所有证据，逼迫克拉拉承认谋杀，但这样做可能会引发克拉拉的抵触情绪，导致审问被迫中断。而另一套方案则是打感情牌，循序渐进地引导他承认谋杀，这也是最稳妥的方式，但前提是不能让克拉拉意识到这次审问的真正目的，所以大卫才试探性地提出了这个问题。值得庆幸的是，克拉拉表示并不认识大卫。随后警探便从杰瑞举报克拉拉骚扰开始说起，逐渐聊到了汤姆的谋杀案。在此之前，警探特意讲述了一段自己家人沾染违禁品的遭遇，切身体会地说道，违禁品会摧毁一个善良人的内心，也会导致他们走上错误的道路。这番话彻底打动了克拉拉，沉思片刻后，他终于承认了杀害汤姆的事实。
I snuck out of my house in the middle of the night because I really wanted to get high. And I showed up down there and the door was locked and he wouldn't let me in, so I had to crawl in through the window and I talked to him for a while and then he didn't save me and except just a little bit, and so he gave me enough that it got really, really high. Then there was no more, and we just started fighting and arguing, and he was going to ruin my life. And I thought that the only way that I could get my husband to not be mad at me for sneaking out and doing drugs and going back to Tom's, I couldn't see any other way out. I was desperate. All I wanted to do,
根据克拉拉的说法，那晚她去汤姆家只是为了索要一些违禁品。起初汤姆坚决拒绝，因为他不想招惹杰森，但在克拉拉的哀求下，最终还是勉强给了他一小部分。然而这远远无法满足克拉拉的需求，随后两人爆发了激烈争执。在此期间，汤姆曾威胁要将克拉拉的所作所为告诉她的丈夫杰森，这让克拉拉感到非常紧张，因为此前她已经向杰森承诺今后不再接触违禁品，也不会再与汤姆来往。于是为了不让杰森发现，克拉拉在恐慌情绪的作用下彻底失去理智，持刀杀害了汤姆。作案后，克拉拉很快意识到自己犯了愚蠢至极的错误，因为她不知道该如何收场，只能向杰森求助，这使得她的犯罪行为显得毫无意义。但不管怎样，杰森还是选择帮助她处理了作案凶器，焚烧了沾血的衣物，掩盖了这起罪行。
Is there anything that we forgot or anything I didn't ask you that's important for us to understand about this for right now?
I might have some slight mental conditions that might, my mom is, my birth mom is a paranoid schizophrenic, because she's been in an institution since 1978 in California. And me and my brother suffered a lot of mental and physical setbacks from her starving us when we were children, and I almost died, and we both got brain damage from that. And I just have some issues, I have a lot of issues.
Well, if you, because we're going to write a report from what you said, and so you've got a recorder there. It'll go to the prosecutor and the judge. Is there something you want them to know, or
that I
about
deserve to
you?
be punished. I know that, and that I don't want to waste anybody's time or money defending me, because I don't need a defense. I'm guilty, and whatever you guys want to do with me, I understand.
Well, it won't be up to us. You understand that? We're just. But let me make sure. And because
I'm sorry.
No.
I would never do that in my right mind. I would never kill anybody.
通过上述对话可以看出，克拉拉与以往的罪犯明显不同。她并未推卸责任，也没有寻找借口，而是选择了坦然接受一切。实际上，克拉拉和汤姆一样，都是穷苦出身，沾染违禁品只是因为在怀孕期间经历了第一任丈夫意外离世，精神受到沉重打击所致，本质上并不是无恶不作的坏人。但无论如何，这都不能成为犯罪的理由，最终克拉拉付出了失去自由的代价。
Thank you, Pastor Jerry. You finally helped me. You should have done that last year. When I was ready.
2014年11月，克拉拉与警方达成了2级谋杀罪的认罪协议，获刑15年监禁。杰森虽然参与了销毁证据，但由于已经超过3年诉讼期，所以他并未被追究任何责任。好了，本期案件分享到这里也就结束了。如果你喜欢我的节目，请帮我点赞加关注，非常感谢大家的支持。我是大熊，下期见。